Welcome in to the Saturday edition of the Fun Astrology Podcast. It certainly has turned into my favorite day of the week. Stephanie, has it turned into yours?
Yes, thank you, Thomas. I look forward to these every week. I'm so happy to be back with you.
I know. This thing has really taken off and folks are just loving it. So we have a question specifically about how a planet affects our medical astrology. Let's listen to this great question.
Hi, Thomas and Stephanie. This is Maria from Northern California. I have a question about Saturn and how it relates to medical astrology in your natal chart. Thanks so much. Love the Saturday podcasts about medical astrology. Take care.
And Maria, you take care there in Northern California and stay safe. And thank you for a great question. Okay, now, Stephanie, you've been studying medical astrology, and I know we wove through some of the signs where Capricorn was illuminated when we did that, like particularly Capricorn and Aquarius. But what I'm thinking, just knowing how astrology fits the bricks in the wall, that if we're talking Saturn, we have to be talking something close to structure, foundation, the bones, right? Our platform. So what does Saturn look like in medical astrology?
Yes, that's right. It's anything of form and structure. And you alluded to the bones and our teeth, our skin, nails, those kinds of things. So Saturn is our sense of discipline. It's a process of aging in the body, and it can help allude to possible challenges in health. And so it's really critical to know where the natal placement is. And in general, as you mentioned, a little bit alluding to Capricorn there, the nature can feel a bit cold. It can feel a little slow, but it is the strong structure that helps keep things in place. And so I think I love that Marie's asked this, because I think knowing where Saturn is in your chart can really help illuminate some areas that you want to proactively keep in the best possible condition and support those areas in your life.
Okay, now this is interesting because remember, the coin has two sides, right? That's kind of a theme around here. So when we talk about structure, that to me is more of the positive side of the coin, right?
Yes, exactly.
Now, what if we went shadow side, which is and I don't want, this is one of the things. People could get into a fear-based kind of thing when Saturn is in some kind of a place in their chart. So let's just hit the shadow side of the coin straight up. What about disease, difficulty, delays, etc.? Have you seen that side of Saturn from a medical perspective?
Yes, I have. So I thank you for bringing that up, because we do always need to look at both sides. So Saturn can show where a chronic health challenge may lie. Since Saturn is that father time, it's considered more of a chronic or a long-term situation. And it can show areas where there's more coldness, so areas that are inclined to lack of blood flow, oxygenation, and where toxins can amass. These same regions can also become tight or hardened in the body, since Saturn rules the bones and hard structures of the body. So it's important to understand both possible sides, but I want to stress that it is really the aspects and looking a bit deeper, and not just the sign itself that Saturn is in. Some people have very positive placed Saturns, and they have excellent aspects with the other planets. And Saturn can be quite a strong planet that gives them positive things, like you mentioned, discipline and strong resistance to things. So it's really taking the whole into account. So don't just think you're doomed if you have Saturn in, let's say, Aries, where it tends to be in its fall.
Okay. Now, actually, right there on that, why don't you mention, because I know in medical astrology, horary astrology, some of these other applications of astrology, we definitely look at the ancient areas of detriment and fall, where its expressions are more quote-unquote negative, exaltation or rulership, where it's more positive. So how does Saturn align in those categories?
Yes. So thank you for bringing that up too, because like I mentioned, it's considered to be in its fall in Aries because Aries is a very quick, fast moving, action oriented sign. And Saturn doesn't like to go quick and fast. That's Mars territory. So it doesn't feel at home there. And that can be a bit more of a challenge in that sign. If Saturn is sitting in Capricorn or Aquarius, that is the two signs that it rules. So it enhances those energies and it feels most at home. And in Libra, it's considered to be exalted, which is kind of interesting because you wouldn't technically think of Libra to have a lot of Saturnian qualities. But the energy of Libra is about, justice and truth and keeping things in a straightforward manner. And I think it enhances its natural qualities. Then it's considered to be in detriment in Cancer and Leo. Cancer, it's quite the emotional, watery placement. And then Leo, again, that fire energy that just wants to go, go, go and do action. So that kind of alters and interferes with its natural energy. So those are important things to kind of look at, where Saturn is in your chart and to keep in mind. And also Saturn can tend to be a little bit colder, which is another interesting thing to talk about. It can be colder or actually a warmer Saturn if it's placed in a sign that it's exalted in or in its home, of Capricorn or Aquarius. And then where if it's in its fall or detriment, it tends to make it a bit more of a colder Saturn. So you want to keep an eye on it more.
So, I just know, and I'm not sure exactly what Maria's context was. She didn't mention this, but I know that we can either fear these kind of negative things coming around. And look, you're talking to the poster child of when Saturn crossed over most of my planets, it knocked the legs out from under my life for 7 years. It was like, holy cow. So it's not, but I wasn't working with the energy. See, I was oblivious, really, going the other way. So the question is, from what you've seen, how can we work with Saturn's energy? And then, for those who might be a little concerned about an area showing up, how can they not fear it?
Yes, this is such an important point because I know when my first Saturn return came around, it knocked the wind out of me as well. It was a really interesting experience because I really had no clue about Saturn's energies and how to work with it. So I think as far as in general, it is empowering to know where your Saturn is placed and some of the aspects and then the sign that it is in. So in the previous podcast we've done on the moon, you can go back and listen to, let's say you have a Saturn in Scorpio. You can go back and listen to Scorpio, and I talk about the parts of the body that Scorpio rules over. So you would want to pay a bit more attention to those areas of your body and do everything you can to support them and to keep them healthy and operating in a very optimal, functional manner. You can treat things if you've already got, let's say, a little bit of arthritis or something like that going on, because that sometimes can pop up with Saturn and Capricorn, to treat areas like warming them, relaxing them, increasing that circulation. So doing gentle walking a lot of times, and this can go into a lot more in depth and detail, but you can treat too cold of Saturn things by doing more things that you would like with Mars, like heat and increasing that circulation. So those are just kind of some basic things that you can do. And then having the mindset of knowing this information of which areas of your body that Saturn rules over and doing what you can to support them to the utmost matter, I think can really help and go a long way in peace of mind. And what I found with Saturn myself personally, because I do have him in the 6th house, and it's definitely been a lifelong theme, is that it really helps give you that discipline, that endurance, and that real strength in the house and that area of your life that he falls in. So I think it's quite empowering to look at it from that side instead of thinking you're doomed just because, let's say, you have Saturn in Aries and that's considered the fall. So supporting it and understanding it's the whole picture.
So kind of summarizing and boiling this down to some takeaways for next week, right? Then we can, obviously, one is Saturn is about structure.
Yes. Saturn is about structure. Saturn is about form. Saturn is about having the discipline and the endurance to keep going. And it can also signify longevity and strength in the physical body. So it's very critical and important to know.
And, I'm thinking even around that structure, the frame, the bones, the joints, the sinews, all of that, yoga. In other words, if your structure is tight and tensed up and you sit all day, then you can look at the Saturnian influence and just instantly, you don't need astrology for this, but instantly, make sure that your structure is nimble and flexible and strong so that it can do the job that it needs to do to support your body.
Yes, yin yoga is a very Saturnian type of exercise that is amazingly beneficial in keeping everything nimble and flexible, like you said, especially as we age. And since Saturn represents aging, working with it in a positive way, like doing yoga, even if it's 10 minutes a couple times a week, helps work with that energy in a really positive way.
Also, then, if Saturn is in some kind of an aspect where it's rubbing a little scratchy, then the place that you look to offset that would be back to structure and foundation. What needs to be shored up?
Yes, exactly. And then the house that Saturn's in too is an area where that structure and discipline is going to really go a long way.
So we really could use Saturn as a medical guide of almost prevention, it sounds like to me.
Exactly. And that's what's so empowering, is looking at those body areas that Saturn is ruling. Like I mentioned, please go back and listen to the podcast, for the sign that your Saturn's in, so you can hear those body areas, and then working on supporting and keeping those strong and healthy.
Excellent. Stephanie, this is great. Wow. And Maria, thank you for that question. And then I think next week we've got Pluto. Speaking of Saturn and Pluto, what about Pluto?
Yes. So we're going to talk a little bit about how Pluto can affect you from a medical astrology standpoint. And more specifically, the listener has asked a question about the transits. And so I'm going to talk a little bit about Pluto going through the houses and give you some good information on that.
Excellent. All right. And if you have questions,
please send them in. Please send your medical astrology questions in. We would love to hear from you, and I want to help answer any questions that you have to give you some more great knowledge and empower yourself on your astrological health journey.
Stephanie, thank you so much. This has been excellent again. Really appreciate it. I hope you have a wonderful week.
Thank you, Thomas. Thank you for having me, and thank you so much to all the listeners. And we are so grateful that you are on us with this journey, and we look forward to being back here with you next Saturday.